Hello everyone, this is Joey Hennigan, Wisconsin agronomist for Beck's. I'm just coming at you with a pre-Memorial Day weekend update, particularly around two topics. One, finishing planting for the season, and secondly, some of our herbicide activation or lack thereof with the hot and dry conditions we're having. So firstly, talking about finishing planting, we're getting on the tail end of planting progress here in Wisconsin. Still a little bit of corn probably going in after some first crop hay being chopped or just later fields, and some soybeans for sure still being finished up here within the next week. Something to be very mindful of with the current hot and dry conditions we have. Be sure you're planting into moisture, especially if you're doing tillage ahead of that planting. We're moving a lot of moisture out of that 2-inch zone where we typically put our corn and soybean seeds. So be sure to check on that after you finish your tillage operations, or if you're still going into a stale seed bed or no tilling into a hay field. Just be sure you're hitting moisture. You may need to set the planter as deep as 2.5 to 3 inches, which is a little deeper than we typically need to work with here in Wisconsin. But that's not too uncommon in some drier areas of the corn and soybean growing areas of the U.S. So use your best judgment on a really heavy or really poorly drained soil, even if it is drying out, on your best judgment on is that an appropriate depth. But if you don't hit uniform moisture now at planting and with really no rain in the forecast for the next at least 7 days, if you don't hit that uniform moisture, you won't get uniform germination and uniform emergence, which can just put that crop even further behind. So use your best judgment on depth there, but be sure, if you can, try to hit that uniform moisture layer, wherever that may be, as we finish planting over the course of the next week. Next topic with related weather conditions would be your soil residual herbicides. Those herbicides need water to be activated. We haven't had a lot of rain across the entire state really in the last week, and we don't have a lot of rain predicted for the next week. So if we don't get rainfall on those soil residual herbicides, they're not going to be active to do what they need to do for weed control and weed suppression. We're looking for at least a 1/4 inch, but preferably a 1/2 to 1 inch within a week of those herbicides being applied. So if you haven't gotten that after you've applied your soil residual herbicides, they're not activated right now. So some common ones, particularly on the soybean side, Dual or your S-metolachlor, that label calls for a 1/2 to 1 inch of rainfall. Zidua, the pyroxasulfone, same thing, 1/4 inch plus, ideally more than 1/2 inch. Flumioxazin or your Valor products, they're looking for at least 1/2 inch. And your Spartan and authority-based or with sulfentrazone, they're looking for another 1/2 inch at least. So without that rainfall, those aren't going to be activated. So just be aware of that. The corn side, for atrazine-based products and our group 27s, the HPPDs, the bleachers, those have better reach back where they can be activated later and still kill an emerged seedling. So we're not as worried about most of our corn chemistries and corn premixes. It's primarily on the soybean side of things where they don't have as good of quote-unquote reach back where they can kill an already emerged seedling. So just be aware of that. And if you're in a situation where you put your residuals down but you don't get an activating rainfall, you just need to maybe start planning for an earlier post than what we had planned on. It's kind of unfortunate how that works sometimes, but if so, just be aware of that. And if you're having to start moving towards post applications next week, I'll update if need be, but be aware of drought and stress conditions on that crop. We have really young corn and soybean seedlings at the V1 to maybe V3 stage for either crop. If they're under a lot of drought stress next week with our predicted 90-degree temperatures and dry conditions, just be aware of some of the more aggressive chemistries going out across a young corn and soybean crop in that condition. So I'll update on that in the next couple of days if we need to after Memorial Day weekend, but just wanted to give a quick update with our what is a really nice forecast to hopefully enjoy a little bit of time off if you get it, or wrapping up a lot of field activities, if not doing a lot of hay work. But just wanted to give that update for the state of Wisconsin here in advance of Memorial Day weekend. Hope everybody's doing well, and if by all means, if you have any questions, reach out to your seed advisor, your dealer, or your Beck's agronomist. Thank you and have a good weekend.